We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
Are we to the point where 8K means something more than just kind of the euphoric, hey, it's 8K, we're awesome?
No, I don't think we are.
No. Yes. I mean, no.
On this episode of ResiWeek, Samsung leads the market, Daisy's expansion, and 8K certification for projectors. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 462, Over Your Skis. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by three of my good friends. First, we have Mr. John Henkel. He's the Director of SMB Product Marketing over at Netgear. How you doing, John?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be back here on ResiWeek.
Thanks for being here. Then we have Gary Usher. He's the VP of Marketing at Powerhouse Alliance. How you doing, Gary?
I'm great, guys. Thank you.
And joining us again, one of my favorite people, Miss Rachel Bradshaw. She's the VP of Account Services at Caster Communications. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on, Matt. It's fun to be on this side of the camera for once.
Wow, you're not lurking this time. It's fantastic. All right. We are going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Samsung leads the U.S. smart TV ownership. Something like 37% of all smart TVs in the U.S. are Samsung products. The only close company to follow up with that is LG and their WebOS platform with around 22%. They're the only two smart TV providers that have at least 22% of market share in both software and manufacture their own sets. Go read the rest of the article. It does show some interesting insight into that. John, I want to start with you. Is this a surprise, that Samsung is so far in front? Is that based on the fact that they have arguably the most complete line from highly affordable to luxury, we'll say?
I think it's all of that. I think as a marketing person, I'm going to say they do great marketing. I think that's a lot of it too. But so I think they've been around for a long time. Plenty of other manufacturers have been around as well. I've used them. Once I first got my first Samsung TV, I've replaced it with another Samsung. And that's the key, I think, for a lot of people, is once you get used to a certain brand, you're going to stay with that brand for a while. I'm sure people will jump around as new features and new things, come into the marketplace. But what I came across from the article too, which I thought was interesting, did you guys all notice this? I'm going to quote it: unofficial AI generated estimate based on graph sizes.
Yeah. Oh, gee.
I'm like, what the heck is that? So they're just estimating, AI is estimating. And of course, every time you use AI, it says maybe wrong. So do we trust this data? That's the other part of that. I don't know.
It is interesting that I'd love to know how Parks came to that, because they are typically bulletproof in their estimations and their brand surveys and all of that jazz. This is literally all they do. But it was surprising to me. Gary, do you think that might be part of the reason why we're not seeing Sony in this, or is it because they're talking more, or they're conflating this with the smart platform?
Well, your question being, do we trust the information and the dissemination of, not just the categories, but the performance in this space? Mm-hmm. Do we trust that or that pulling of that information? I'm not afraid of that AI data pull, because it can be done in different ways, and we've just got to start. I'm not trusting it, but that's just how we're going to disseminate information quickly. I saw that it was reticent in that article, and Sony, although it's not a genuine Powerhouse line, for instance, but our lineup for the Powerhouse members, LG and Samsung, being it's more or less completing the task between the two. So I think that looking at distribution centers like ours, it's giving you a complete picture as it is. Yes, Sony's makes some great products and has a great ecosystem as well. I think that our dealers, going on down to the installers, they know that that product is available. When you have brand champions, so to speak, that, like John, you said, you want to get away from that Samsung ecosystem, it's available. It makes people get to a path and search that out and ultimately feel like they got their customer the best performer in what their needs were. So let's just see. I think 37% is a bit high. I also saw in that article that we're floating around that 23%. What did that mean? If you took out the other ecosystems, is that what it meant? They didn't take away that it was almost 40% of the panels sold. But look, with Android and so forth, it's got such a strong brand. I actually, as a marketing person, love watching how they manipulate the market and come out with pretty decent products. So
I would be pretty skeptical of an AI generated analysis that says it's based on graphs, because I mean, I'm not like one of those people who thinks that everything generated by AI is slop. I think it can be an extremely useful tool, but one of the things that it is not as consistent and successful at is image interpretation and machine vision. It's much more complicated than trying to generate, analysis from a data set, say for instance. So I that line does give me a lot of pause, but I do think that there's a lot to what you said, Matt, about the diversity of the Samsung line. Because one of the other things in that article that caught my attention was this quick tossed off line about how well these platforms integrate with home automation systems. And, the TV is the most used appliance in the house. And does this mean TVs are going to be the hub for smart home? And I immediately thought to myself, no, it does not mean that, because nobody wants to control their smart home that way. And because, point of fact, nobody wants to look at their TV all the time in that way. You look at Architectural Digest, or I actually made a list, Wayfair Professional, First Dibs. They all have, for their 2025 interior design trends, once again, hidden technology, the ability to integrate technology into the home subtly. And that's another area where I think Samsung has been really successful with the frame line that they've expanded again this year with audio. I think that ability to both create things that are really accessible for the mass market consumer, but then also stay on top of where design trends are heading, has helped them establish that kind of commanding position, even if it's not as commanding as maybe Dolly thinks it is.
So, Rachel, let me ask you this though, because, and again, I read that I'm not as concerned with the AI sales chart, because I'm looking at feedback that I get from clients. And literally walking into a Costco or a Best Buy any given day, I can find a Samsung that's a 50-inch for $400, and I can find a 50-inch for $8,000. I can't necessarily do that with LG or with TCL or with Sony. Again, I'm not picking on those brands. I'm not surprised at all that Samsung likely owns 40% of the TV market in the US. I don't think that's off.
I mean, I think that it puts me in mind of a conversation that I got to have recently with an integrator in Florida. He works for a company called Dr. Hook It Up, and he talked about how
I know this guy.
Yeah, Ken Ramsey, right?
Yeah.
So he talked about how he's built this whole business fully in the mid-market that keeps him as booked and busy as anybody could ever want to be. And in part, how that works for him is that he will go in and he'll do a relatively really inexpensive, quick job for somebody. And then when that person moves into a larger home, they call the person that they already know and trust and did a good job. And I think that there's a similar logic that may even apply with the Samsung TV. If you build a quality product at a lower price point, then when people are ready to upgrade, they stick with the interface that they like and that they're familiar with. And the Samsung interface is smooth. It works. It's a relatively good user experience as far as smart TV interfaces go, and it's not unlovely. And a lot of them are really ugly. So I think that the way that they've invested in user interface design is really smart too. But then as people upgrade even like to throughout their lives to more and more luxurious AV experiences, having a good interface that they're familiar with may weigh on their decision-making process to a certain extent.
Yeah. And so many people are just brand loyal. Like possibly to a
makes
fault
me wonder
at
if
times.
maybe Smart Things is working better than I think it is. I don't know.
That is a whole other wormhole that we will not go down today. But I am a big believer in Smart Things, and I get nitpicked on this show all the time for it. But man, for entry level, just do a couple of simple things and do it remotely. It's great. People asleep on that way too much.
They might have relied on that headline as the panel being the driver here, rather than, Rachel, when you said the hidden technology. That's a scary thing it depends on who we're really going after.
Yeah.
When you brought it up, Rachel, it was like, hey, don't forget that hidden technology is everything that we're banking on and continuing to go for. But the grassroots demo that Ken was going after, that makes total sense, Well,
yeah. and again, we'll move on right after this, but LG is using the TV as an extension of their smart home platform as kind of the main base station because it's on so often. So
and Amazon's made the same play, right? Yeah. A lot of people think this is going to happen. I just don't buy it.
No, I was just going to say, don't forget that for all these TV manufacturers, it's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
For panels. So they have to have something else besides just the glass and the panel.
True.
And
that's true.
When you go by and see a 50-inch, 60-inch TV for what, $499 or something? I mean, that's just incredible. So that's everything else behind the scenes. Plus, one thought I wasn't sure of, is there a dealer discount? How does the dealer pricing work for displays? Gary, you know more than I would on that.
Well, it's not only that; it's the ongoing relationship with, if you wanted to be that brand champion, and what their demands aren't coming back down. Our adherence to their programs is the top front part of it, and that's the glorious part. But the back end, what the dealer has to do to either replace or get white glove service, et cetera, it's a pain in their butts, and it's hard to have that relationship. That always leaves that wide open ability to kind of change, to where the Powerhouse Group wants to have as many lines. Again, like how many lines? I think we'll kind of talk about this with Daisy and some of the other content we want to talk about, what's out there and what's available to our integrators. I want to put a cap on it because it's like enough is enough, but keeping them curious and active, going back to Ken's analogy, keeping that business alive and thriving on his own particular set of brand movement is important.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today and Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. Daisy acquires her Mary in San Fran's design district. This is the 8th company, I believe, that Daisy has acquired this year, and they're folding it again into their brand across the board. Gary, let me come back to you on this. What's the ceiling for Daisy? Because 8 is more than I thought they were going to get this year.
When I went through that article, I kind of approached it like I didn't know anything about them, and the buildup of the CEO and certain aspects of that longevity, that confidence building was there. So ceiling, I mean, come on, 16, double it, 21. Okay, so in San Francisco, it made perfect sense for that particular his business to be acquired. Remember he talked about. I watched a couple of videos. There was other things that added to how that became an opportunistic scenario for Daisy, the demographic in San Fran, a lot of things. He was ready, and he feels that he built a clientele list that is ready and will admire the decision making and some of the guardrails that he's posting around that client base going forward for the next 20 years will be supplemented by Daisy, not taken over. Yeah. So maybe every acquisition needs to be tailored. That's something that, okay, broad statement, but like these companies come in and they're not doing that. They're trying to have survivability for their main technology, profitability platform, if you will. And I don't feel that way with Daisy. I feel like it's surrounded by some good decision making, the availability of some new products coming into the fold. We have worked with them, and I think that it's a positive step forward. How to double it up or scale it up, man, you guys, I think there's availability. I think people might see this and say to themselves from the private sector, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for some think tank type of mentality. It's not necessarily forecasting, but we're together. We're going to build a good pathway for our existing clientele.
Rachel, what is the effect that this has on the channel? Because we've seen companies like Bravas come in and have 20 locations. Daisy, again, in my opinion, based on just what I've read and the interviews I've watched, I think their sights are set significantly higher. I view them as likely going after the top 100 markets in the US fairly easily. What does that do?
Mean, it does put pressure on the industry, right? Definitely. It puts pressure on Daisy as well. There's always a risk that they're going to get out over their skis and grow too fast, but it does seem like they've been really smart about it lately. And I think that that's because they have really intelligently addressed some of the problems that I've been hearing integrators talk about for years, the difficulty that they have training new people, the difficulty that they have recruiting new people, the difficulty that they have offering ongoing recurring revenue generating services like customer service contracts and support. Daisy puts their hand up and we'll go, oh, we'll do that part for you. We'll help you with the recruitment. We've got a training program. We've got a certification program. We will have a call center. We'll handle your tier 1 technical support. We have a customer support team so you can offer ongoing revenue generating services. It makes it really, really appealing to sign up to be a franchisee. So I think that what it actually puts pressure on the rest of the channel to do is, if they're not going to join them, beat them, right? Find out ways to address those same pain points within their own businesses, whether that is like leaning really strongly into CEDIA certification and training programs and bringing some of that in-house, licensing it, et cetera, and building your own strong program, whether it's developing a partnership with somebody like an Oliver IQ that can help you offer those tier 1 customer support services remotely without you having to staff your own call center. Like there are ways to acquire and outsource and delegate some of those same tasks that Daisy is trying to do for you. But I think if you're going to survive and scale, because I think a big thing that Daisy is offering is the ability for folks to scale. If you're going to survive and scale as an integrator in a marketplace that's becoming more competitive and getting more attention from like mainstream investors, then you can't continue to just let these problems be problems and expect somebody else to solve them for you. You have to come up with your own solutions that work for your business.
Yeah, that's a great point. John, is this kind of the golden bullet, or the golden parachute actually, for companies and owners that don't have a good exit plan? Because again, I've been in the business for 20 something years, and that's something I've noticed over the last 10 is companies are shutting down because they can't either find someone to buy their book because their books are terrible. And they don't see the value in selling to an employee because, again, there's not enough of an upside there. Is the franchise model taking that local brand name that has some cachet? Is that the golden parachute that the industry has been waiting for?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the entire industry, but I think you raise a good point for sure that some of these smaller firms, and let's face it, somebody who plays in the commercial AV world and residential custom integration, the custom integration world is so different, as you know. There's so many more mom and pop shops, or mom and mom, or pop and pop, for that matter, that exist. And due to those the problems we talked about earlier with like panels being raced to the bottom, things like that, people can go to Best Buy and buy all that stuff. Best Buy is like your distributor. I shouldn't bash them, but you can get this stuff anywhere. So for an integrator in the residential market specifically, that's got to be really, really hard for sure to make a difference. So like you're saying, recurring revenue, things like that. I think this brings together an economy of scale that those companies could never get on their own, for sure. And if they want to grow and keep it going, that's the way to do it. You can, through purchasing power, through deals, through writer. I hadn't thought about the training part of it and things like that. Those are really good points they can offer themselves. And trying to get younger employees in and up to speed that want to carry this on, that's got to be hard. I think you've hit the nail on the head for some of that. It's their way out. As these people age out a bit, speaking as an old guy, yeah, you want to think about what's next for the company. For sure, you want to protect that.
Yeah.
And San Francisco is the perfect place for that. Spending 15 years of my life there, I know that market reasonably well, and that's the perfect market to try to bring in. There's something I was trying to dig up before this interview, before the show here, about the highest either income or something like that. But per capita was like San Francisco is it now $1 million median income or something like that? We know that that's huge. That's a great market for them to pursue for sure. I may be off. I shouldn't. Don't quote me. But it's
up
high.
there though. Yeah, it's extremely high.
That doesn't seem wrong.
No,
it wasn't what I made there. But anyway, yeah,
it hovers around that market.
Yeah.
All right, let's change topics for a second. This is likely our last story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems. The 8K Association announces specifications and certification program for 8K projectors, not just for TVs anymore. Go read through the article. It covers all of the things that are in that spec as far as certification for 8K, as well as some leadership transition and some training that they're doing to try and help people understand the difference and the reason for going 8K. Rachel, let me start with you on this. Are we to the point where 8K means something more than just kind of the euphoric, hey, it's 8K, we're awesome?
No, I don't think we are. I mean, what 2% of televisions sold in 2024 even had 8K capabilities?
But these are projectors, Rachel. They're projectors.
Circle. Yeah,
that even seems high. 2% even seems high to me for that, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I guess the best available data is from 2 years ago, at which point it was less than 2%, like 0.15%, right? Like it's nothing. It's nothing. And I think that's because we don't have a real killer app for 8K yet. Like I was looking at this a little bit and thinking about like, okay, it took a while. It took the industry a long while to really embrace even 4K.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's pretty standard. It's almost hard to find a panel that doesn't have 4K capabilities. But I think that's because we eventually found the metaphorical killer app for 4K, which was HDR. Right. Mm-hmm. That really made the difference for people that really, even the common person who wasn't like a pixel picker could really discern the difference in that experience. And I don't think we know what that is for 8K yet, outside of edge cases like medical imaging. But, even the 8K Association has said, well, it's sports, right? It's going to be just like it was for 1080p. Once you see sports in 8K, you're never going to want to go back. And maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. The 4K experience with sports is really, really good. I wonder, I don't know, I'm agnostic on the point, whether or not the difference is going to be so great with 8K that people are going to be willing to accept the bandwidth trade-offs. And then there's the content delivery of it all. So basically, I have a lot of questions about when and how this is going to become relevant for the mainstream consumer. And I also think that it's really interesting that we are putting a performance standards sticker on a component like a projector that includes immersive audio, because the
ability to pass it. That's all.
Right. But I wonder if that isn't confusing for the consumer who might see that sticker and see what the certification supposedly means and think that in purchasing that projector, they're purchasing an immersive audio experience, which they're not.
I can't wait for that conversation because I know I will have it with a client. The same way I had it with surround sound and projectors.
When I read, sorry to butt in here too, but read that about the 8K logo, things like that, I'm thinking, Rachel, as a marketer, they're going to make those manufacturers pay for that logo.
Of
right?
course.
And that's how 8K Consortium is going to make their money. So
very much so. John, so two things. And Rachel, just to your point, I just scanned the Best Buy site briefly while you were talking. There are a ton of 8K capable panels available, like a vast number. The majority of them are Samsung, to throw back to the first story, but you have a TLC in there and you do have some Sonys in there. So the availability is definitely there. The price points are going to be the kicker. John, when you see this, when you hear the conversation about 8K, we know that the delivery source for that is going to be the network. Do most homes have a network that is capable of actually displaying 8K in any, I'm not saying like native 8K. I'm saying highly compressed YouTube 8K with a smash color gamut, notwithstanding.
Well, you qualified that pretty well. Yeah.
I'm trying to, but what's it going to take to get there?
It's and luckily for Netgear, of course, it's easy. It's just still be over a switch, so we don't care. We're agnostic as to all that, which is great. So we promote 8K, 4K, whatever you want to do. That's great. Personally, though, I think it's going to take a long time. I'm not going to tell you how little tech I have in my house for some of this and how small my display is, but I'm in the business and been there for a long time. But it's fine. I have a 43-inch TV. I did say that. I'm fine with that. It's 4K. Great. That's perfect enough. I don't have kids, so that's the other reason for some. I don't have gaming and things like that. I think it's going to be the same thing as we have with 4K, where it's going to be sold for years, and we've reached a great plateau, or height, I would say for sure, with 4K adoption. Absolutely, but nobody's going to trade their 60-inch, 90-inch 4K TV for a 8K display that costs 5 times as much. It has to be. And I just don't see that happening.
I'm definitely trying to sell that. Don't worry about it. I got it.
Yeah. But also just like 4K, the thought just occurred to me again, the problem is content. Yeah. So, and I remember, because we talked about this before the show a little bit on the Olympics, when NBC was just introducing some HD, and that was such a huge, big deal, and it's huge, major cost as well. So here we are again, trying to find content, the encoders, decoders, everything else for content production at 8K. That's crazy. That's a lot.
And what are we doing to our signal runs? I just have concerns.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm more in the trenches on this topic where, from a C-level point of view, certification, training, what I can use as a hook for content, I'm going to take it all day long. Look, I've got to train in 2025. If I can get 500 kids between 25 and 32 to demystify what 8K is and re-script, it's great to me. So I'll train on it. I'll take that moniker. Just taking that low ball, but all of what you said was true, and we will go through that. But I think it's been just kind of so long, and anytime I can grab good enough content and discuss what we see this as, it's good. And that demographic is getting smaller and smaller. Not smaller, younger and younger in the installer's point of view. So
Gary, take out a Magic 8 Ball for a second. How long till we have acceptable 8K available in the market? Because, and I'll predicate it with this, all three of you are in America, where you can get a streaming service that has a wide variety of live 4K events. I am in Canada, where that is extremely limited, even in sports. We don't get 4K streams. We get one 4K stream from one of 2 providers. That's it. So the football game I wanted to watch yesterday it was atrocious HD. How long is it going to be before 8K is something that you look at the movie you want to watch on Netflix and go, you know what, I'll watch this one in 8K. I'm okay with that. That'd be great.
Crystal ball, it's hard. I think that if broadcast decides to err on the side of that's sporting events and 8K is where they're going to go, and it creates a division between subscription and streaming, and that might be their sell tactic. I could see that. Are they going to conglomerate and get together and do it within 3-4 years? I could see that happening. 2029's events through broadcast will be such and such. That's doable. That's 4 years. Can we gear up from a panel standpoint? Yes, we can. Does that mean on the other side, I don't know if that's even what they would consider. Okay, we're going to stay with our streaming and our content the way we'd like it, and that's another shared entity between, for the top streaming services. I don't know if that'll happen either, but there will be a division on where we're subscribing to and where we're paying our money to, and that might just be the hook that broadcast relies on going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Rachel, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Caster, where can they do that?
Best place to find either me or Caster is on LinkedIn. It's Caster Communications on LinkedIn. And I'm Rachel Bradshaw. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and starting in 2025 on Blue Sky at Castercom.
Excellent. Thank you. Gary, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Powerhouse, where can they do that?
Yeah, Dennis says hello to you, by the way. But yeah, Powerhouse Alliance at powerhousealliance.com. But and you can see our brands and so forth. But more importantly, I think that who our partners are, and 21st Century, and that's Pioneer, and that's Mountain West, and ECD in Texas, and our CEP in Texas now is who we have, Gary Warmoth's new company, UI Supply. So that's who really makes up the Powerhouse Alliance, and I truly believe in that availability for our installers going forward is a clear, positive site going forward. And so I'm very happy to be part of the whole group. And thank you very much, guys.
Hey, thanks for being here. Last but not least, John, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Netgear, where can they do that?
Netgear is easy, netgear.com/AV. Make sure you get the AV. Otherwise, you get the consumer part of Netgear, which has some good deals for Christmas packages. And you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to get a hold of me.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter or X or really every other social channel at Matt D. Scott. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's A State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.